Hello and welcome to the Securus Firestarter. This is on March 30th, 2015. And joining me as always, I say the same thing every time. I don't know if I should come up with a new way of doing it. Anyway, it's Mike and Adrian. You know who they are now. So,
One shopping day left.
huh?
It's the end of Q1, guys. What the hell happened to this year? I mean, it was like yesterday, and I'm, drinking a couple Guinnesses and ringing in the new year, and now Q1 is over. What the hell? Help me understand that. Is it just me, or is time, am I in some weird relativity Einstein nightmare where time is just, accelerating at a dramatic pace?
So, Adrian, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Went for
Okay.
a nice run this weekend. It was awesome.
Good to know. Good to know. So, yeah, got one of those in myself. Um, all right. So for our
You guys are killing me. Now
yeah,
I know who
Sales
not to
guy.
bring into the foxhole. I'm trying to vent here, and screw you guys. How about that?
Thank you,
well,
Richard Lewis.
Yeah.
we've got a lot going on, everybody. The RSA conference is coming up. We're going to talk about that more in a minute. As part of that, we're doing like a learning lab thing. So I've been doing a lot of programming stuff, getting ready for that. We're going to do some hands-on exercises. We've got sessions. We've got the Security Bloggers Meetup, the Disaster Recovery Breakfast, and it's interesting because the crowdsourcing track that I'm dealing with and people cheating on that thing. By the way, people, when you know you're going to do an open voting, you know people are going to cheat. That's not a security vulnerability. You just hope people aren't assholes. There's a difference. And
And we've proven what?
that people are assholes.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, not all of them.
No, most are honest, and
Okay.
they won't be presenting in the crowdsourcing track. And yeah,
Well, fortunately, there's judges and there's rules and there's ways to deal with it. It just doesn't look like it if you look at the leaderboard. But one of the things that came out is a lot of people really knock on RSA, and I think some of this is the general negativity on the internet that we see all the time, especially in security. Everybody just wants to bring everybody else down. It feels like some days. At least I had one of those or a couple of those days last week, and to me, I'm not here promoting any kind of one conference. For us, it's a big thing, but I think people underestimate kind of the value and the usefulness and how to look at this particular event to get something out of it. And so this isn't like the guide to RSA stuff about what tracks and everything to go into. I find RSA time to be very interesting because to me it's more of a lot of people do security predictions or try and figure out trends. To me, this is the time of year because it's the biggest event in the industry, love it or hate it. There's no other events close to its scale. There's tens of thousands of people at this thing, and a bunch of the vendor side, and yet it bridges this weird gap of trade show and event for professionals. And I wanted to see what you guys think. I know how I get out of it and why, even back when I was still at Gartner, I thought it was important to go to this particular event.
well, when you're a trend watcher, as we are, you have to be in a place where a lot of people are going to be talking about a lot of things, and get a feel for what the trends are. So for us, it's obvious, right? And given kind of that, at least a portion of our business, does come from, a lot of vendors. They are at the show, so we get an opportunity to meet up with a bunch of clients and talk about different things. But I find the hallway track, the party track, the blogger meetup
Yeah.
track, a lot of those to be particularly useful as well, because they're not the formal. Yes, I know a lot of people go and they enjoy some of the sessions, but for me, it's kind of the conversations that I'm able to have outside of the structured, briefings, sessions, meetings, etc. That really gives me a much better handle on what things are going on. And again, I get that at Black Hat, right? I get that at RSA, but it really is about a lot of people with very disparate responsibilities, getting into the same place at the same time and just seeing what happens. I mean, so that to me, that's why it's valuable. It gives me an opportunity to listen a lot more than I talk, which, by the way, doesn't happen very often.
Spending 4 years on the vendor side and going to the RSA with my previous company, it was ugly because sitting on that show floor and being the technical expert to field whatever technical question came in from left field, from people walking through, I hated sitting in that booth. I hated the conference, hated walking the show floor. It was, because most of your buyers aren't really going to come through there, and you're doing technical evangelism on the show floor about security. And a lot of the consumers that would come through would have their own idea. So I might be competing with one company according to one of the major analyst firms, but in reality, it was a tangential technology that the customer saw as the real way to solve a particular, let's say, endpoint security problem or database security problem. So you didn't really know who you were competing with until you got there and you saw how the customers perceived their particular problem. And I think, switching in as an analyst and working, with you guys for the last 7 years, and you go on the show floor and you see just all the potential ways that you could solve any particular security problem, the ways that customers view their environment and the way that they want to approach security. And it's fascinating, in the broad spectrum, to walk down onto the RSA show floor and see all the potential ways to go about approaching security and all the different technologies and how people are attempting to innovate or change the landscape. It is a mind-blowing set of options, and it takes a long time to just simply digest what the heck's going on, because there are 10,000 vendors there, each one with saying that they've got the right approach.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I think it's useful then for kind of anyone who's got the time to go. Obviously for us it's critical. It's just what we do. So we're biased. I mean it's just the nature of what we're doing, the ability that's why we focus a lot on the trends. Like when we see the press releases, we see consistent terminology, kind of, and we know a lot of this stuff long before this time hits. But when you start seeing what's coming out, like last year, the cloud security gateway stuff. 2 years ago, I was talking with the first vendor in that area, or what Gartner calls the cloud access and security brokers. Last year, I think 6 companies launched or announced new products or refocused the company around that market right around this time because they want to get the press, which is silly because there's so much noise. It's like the worst time out there to kind of do a release. The difference being is you can set up your meetings because there's enough people there. So clearly there's use on the vendor side, and I call that the trade show part of RSA. For us as analysts, that fits. But I think it's, I'm not, for end users, I think that there's some useful ways that you can use it. Because look, there's downsides of RSA. I think overall, it's really hard to enforce good quality of presentations, across the board. And even though I'm kind of involved with the conference these days, and sometimes I get to see some of the earlier stuff, I'm not on any of the regular tracks. I just do the crowdsource one. But I know kind of the lack of transparency bothers people around the submissions, and then they see a bunch of, in some cases, crappy presentations come out the other side. That's tough. All conferences struggle with that. I struggled with that when I was a conference chair at Gartner. I know Black Hat and all the other security events struggle to get that quality of content. We were at Amazon reInvent, very technical, very focused conference. I still walked out of, I'd say, 30% of the sessions I walked into. Solid. And RSA, it's worse. I think as a user, I would avoid any panels. Don't go to those. They're just a fucking waste of time. Explicit tag. I have found almost no panels of use. The keynotes,
except the ones that I moderate, those are awesome.
Yeah. I won't even moderate panels anymore. The keynotes are interesting because they are paid. I mean, that's the one sessions. Nothing else is paid for. All the session tracks. You can't buy a session track. The keynotes you can. However, it's kind of interesting lineup this year. We've got Chris Hoff, and we know that some of the vendors that we work with don't use them as advertisements. So it'll be interesting to see. I tend to skip most of those, to be totally honest with you, though. I used to go to them a little more. The other sessions, there are more technical sessions than there used to be. You got to look for them, and if that's what you're interested in. I tend to dismiss any sessions that open up with, we'll talk about the risk of XYZ, because that means it's going to be 80% of FUD, and then like maybe 20% of not enough detail on how somebody solved the problem. It's just the way it is when you read those descriptions. But you got to be doing this for a while to kind of weed that stuff out. I think the hallway track is totally overblown in the sense that I know way too many people that get their companies to pay for them to go to RSA so they can socialize in hallways. We use it for work, and that's different than how people do. If you're interested in that and meeting people, it's a great environment to do that. However, don't get I just maybe because I'm antisocial, not a social butterfly.
Yeah.
So I think there can be good content. You just got to look for it. You got to plan ahead of time. Yeah.
Just maybe antisocial.
Just maybe.
Yeah.
Antisocial. The show floor can be really interesting. Go in though and ask to talk to an engineer during any of the booths. Ignore the barkers. Sorry, I'm really losing the language. just run around. You're giving your number out to like 800 sales guys so you can collect some toys for your kids. There's there's cheap toys. You can go buy someplace else. You don't need,
Dollar General.
yeah.
The
Um,
vendors hate you right now. They hate you.
yeah, that's fine.
You know, one of the things that we didn't really, kind of talk about are some of the more interesting, kind of side events and less publicized, I think, tracks and activities. So I know there's a bunch of stuff that goes on Monday for people that get in there early. I know Cloud Security Alliance has their thing. I know
DevOps.com. Yep.
right, DevOps.com is doing a certain thing. The Innovation Sandbox is on Monday. So for folks that want to see things that are new and shiny coming from companies that are just getting out of the chute, I think there's some interesting stuff. A couple of years ago, I was actually one of the judges on the peer-to-peer sessions. So we tried to put good facilitators in there, and actually JJ and I are doing a session on Thursday this year on mindfulness again. But a peer-to-peer session again for those folks that don't get a lot of value from sitting with 250 of your closest friends while people bark at you, and you really want to interact with folks. I found the peer-to-peer sessions to actually be very useful because you're usually in a group of 25 or 30 people, and everybody gets to kind of say their piece if the facilitator is not a total boob. So again, there are things that are maybe off the beaten track a little bit that folks may not know about, where you can also accrete value from being in San Francisco during that week.
Yeah, and have a plan. I mean, we did that when we went to reInvent, the three of us. It was important because we're really kind of, going into that's Amazon's conference. We really wanted to get. I mean, we've always been locally, in depth than other analysts, but we wanted to dig in a lot deeper. We had a plan. We put a calendar. We pick sessions, we as a team, we block those things off, and then we plan on alternates. We were on Slack bouncing around because some of the sessions were worthless and some of them were good, and then they add new sessions, and that helped. And there's not a lot of conferences I get to go to anymore where I get to go to sessions, but if I'm going to, I don't show up that day and look at the board. Kind of plan out the route ahead of time. I look for things like we've got the learning lab, so ours is more technical on DevOps, SecDevOps stuff, but there's some other ones around if you want to do like an incident response wargaming exercise. There's a couple of different kind of investigation-oriented ones. It's a new thing that they're trying this year. And even the show floor, I find show floors to be useful when I know what I'm kind of two ways. One is just cruise around and see what new stuff is out there, but the other is there's companies I've always been looking at. This is going to be horrible where I don't want to deal with the sales guy, and what I can't get enough info off the website. If there's a nice conference lined up, then I'll go to the floor and I'll have to talk to a sales engineer and just hit them up with those technical questions. You get one of those, you put a piece of tinfoil or something behind your badge, and the badge scanners will often not work anymore, so you don't get the sales calls afterwards. That's how I like to leverage those things. And the trends and stuff, I do think the mega trends are actually interesting. We're writing those up for the RSA guide. It's always, we'll see what those are like afterwards, but it always gives me a good sense of where, kind of what are other people thinking, and the reason that those trends actually matter on the vendor side, because they come out with all that stuff because they think that's what people are going to buy, and that gives you a sense of, well, why is somebody paying attention to Internet of Things? And then you realize they probably don't know what they're talking about, and they misadjusted the trends. So I find it all interesting and valuable. All right, did we beat it?
I think we killed it.
I wouldn't say we killed it. It's
Disaster
dead.
recovery breakfast.
Yeah. RSVP@securosis.com. And sign up for the Learning Lab. I got to get some prep materials ready to. We're going to be doing a WebEx next week for people who want to do that, because there's going to be some technical stuff you got to get set up before you show up. All right. Thanks, guys. And thanks everyone for listening. We'll talk to you next week.